The first time Noah opened his eyes in the military infirmary, he thought he was in hell. Not because of the sterile white walls or the stench of antiseptic, but because the man hovering over him looked too clean, too sharp, too damn perfect to be real. Hell shouldn't have men like that. Dr. Elias Carter didn't bother hiding his annoyance. You survived crashing a fighter jet, Major, but somehow you're still arrogant enough to smirk at me while bleeding all over my floor. Noah chuckled, his throat dry. Guess the devil's still got plans for me. It had been 6 months since the war ended, yet Noah still carried it inside his bones. Once a legendary Omega pilot, the pride of his squadron, now he was grounded, stripped of wings, and dumped into an unfamiliar base in the Midwest. The crash had ended his career, but not his stubborn will to exist. Now, the only thing keeping him tethered was a reluctant roommate, the very same doctor who patched him back together but refused to let him forget he was broken. Elias Carter was nothing like the medics Noah remembered. He was younger, sharper, too brutally honest for his own good. An alpha who despised authority, Elias was sent here as punishment for mouthing off to superiors. Stuck in the middle of nowhere, he carried himself like a man who refused to bend. And somehow that infuriated and intrigued Noah in equal measure. Noah's first week at the base was a battlefield of silence and stolen glances. He tried to play it cool after all. He had once flown through missile fire without blinking, but every time Elias brushed past him in the cramped quarters they now shared, his pulse betrayed him. Elias, for his part, refused to acknowledge the tension. He treated Noah as just another patient, reciting strict schedules, shoving medicine into his hand, and criticizing him for sneaking cigarettes behind the barracks. "You're healing slower because you keep acting like an idiot," Elias snapped one night, slamming a folder on the table. "You think scars mean you're invincible, but your body disagrees." Noah leaned back on his bunk, smirking lazily. "Funny. I thought alphas liked their omegas scarred. Makes us look tough, doesn't it?" The flash in Elias's eyes was sharp, almost dangerous. "Don't reduce yourself to that." Noah's smirk faltered. The doctor's words cut deeper than he expected. The nights were the hardest. The Midwest winter crept through thin walls, and the nightmares came with it. Noah would jolt awake, drenched in sweat, hearing the echo of missiles screaming through the air, his hands shaking as if still on the joystick. It was always Elias who noticed, even when Noah tried to hide it. One night, Elias wordlessly handed him a glass of water, then sat down at the edge of his bunk. The silence was almost unbearable. Noah expected judgment, pity, maybe even anger, but instead, Elias just sat there, close enough for their shoulders to brush. "You're not in the cockpit anymore," Elias murmured, his voice softer than Noah had ever heard. "You're safe here." The words shouldn't have mattered. They were simple, almost clinical, but to Noah they felt like a lifeline. Despite himself, Noah began to crave Elias's presence. He hated it, hated how a single look from the doctor could unravel the walls he had built. Elias wasn't supposed to matter. Noah had spent his life in the sky, untouchable, unbound. Falling for someone, especially an alpha who clearly didn't want complications, was the last thing he needed. And yet, there were moments, subtle, fleeting, but undeniable. Elias lingering a second too long when adjusting Noah's bandages. Noah teasing him during late-night chess games, watching the rare smile curve Elias's lips, the way Elias's hand brushed his when passing him a cup, sparking something Noah couldn't ignore. But the world beyond their small room hadn't forgotten them. Rumors spread through the base like wildfire. The legendary Omega pilot who had fallen from the sky, now shacked up with the stubborn Alpha doctor. Soldiers whispered in mess halls, some with mockery, others with envy. One evening, Noah overheard a group of officers sneering about Elias. Figures they'd stick him with damaged goods. An Alpha babysitting a broken Omega. What a waste. Noah's fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. He wanted to lash out, to remind them who he was, what he had done for this country. But Elias's calm voice stopped him. "They're not worth it," Elias said later, when Noah stormed back into their room. "Let them talk. You don't care." Noah demanded, anger and shame colliding inside him. Elias's eyes softened. I care. Just not about them. The silence that followed was deafening. Noah's heart hammered, and for the first time since the crash, he wondered if he could actually breathe again. Their closeness grew dangerous. For every tender moment, there was a wall waiting to rise between them. Elias refused to cross the line, and Noah, though reckless in the sky, feared rejection on the ground more than anything. Until one stormy night changed everything. The power went out across the base, plunging their quarters into darkness. Rain hammered the windows, wind howling like the ghosts of battles past. Noah sat on his bunk, staring at nothing. When the nightmare came again so vivid he swore he felt the cockpit burning around him. He didn't even realize he was shaking until Elias grabbed his shoulders, pulling him into an embrace. Look at me, Elias commanded, his voice urgent, steady. You're here, with me. Noah clung to him, trembling. The scent of Elias's skin-clean soap, faint tobacco anchored him. He buried his face in Elias's chest, and for the first time in years, let the tears fall. Elias held him, no hesitation, no judgment, just warmth, just strength. When Noah finally lifted his gaze, their faces were inches apart. He saw the flicker of conflict in Elias's eyes, the alpha instinct warring with self-restraint. Noah, Elias whispered, almost breaking. Noah's lips curved in the faintest, most fragile smile. If this is hell, I'll stay. And then, against reason, against everything, Elias kissed him. That kiss shattered every wall they had built, every pretense of indifference. It was desperate, raw, filled with the ache of two men who had spent too long pretending they didn't need each other. Noah poured his pain into it, Elias his defiance, until they both lost themselves. When they finally broke apart, breathless, the storm outside had calmed, but inside, a different storm had begun. Elias pulled back, guilt flashing in his eyes. We can't, Noah silenced him with a hand on his cheek. We already did. For the first time since his fall from the sky, Noah felt alive again. That night marked a beginning neither of them dared admit aloud. Their world was still hostile, their future uncertain, but between whispered touches and stolen moments, something real began to bloom. And in the quiet aftermath, Noah realized something terrifying. Wasn't afraid of flying anymore. He was afraid of falling. And this time it wasn't from the sky. Noah never imagined love could feel like flying again. After years of chasing the horizon, only to fall in flames, he thought the sky had abandoned him. But Elias, stubborn, infuriating, unyielding Elias, gave him wings of a different kind. Not the kind forged in steel and fire, but in trust, in touch, in a quiet hand reaching for his when the nightmares threatened to drag him under. And yet, happiness had never come without a price. Rumors spread faster than wildfire across the base. Whispers that an alpha doctor had crossed the line with his omega patient. Disciplinary hearings loomed. Superiors made veiled threats. The world outside their small room tried to break them apart with the sharpness of tradition and the cruelty of prejudice. Elias stood before the tribunal with his head high, unflinching. They accused him of compromise, of weakness, of failing his station. But Noah, limping, scarred, but unbroken, burst into the room, standing beside him. You don't get to decide who saves me, Noah said, his voice steady though his heart thundered. This man did more than stitch my wounds. He kept me alive when I wanted to disappear. And if that makes us guilty, then punish me too. The room erupted in shocked silence. Elias's jaw tightened, but his eyes softened as they flicked toward Noah. For once, there was no anger in his gaze, only pride. They didn't lose everything, but they lost enough. Elias was transferred, stripped of rank, ordered into reassignment. Noah was offered retirement in silence, an easy exit that would bury both his reputation and his love in one blow. But neither man took the easy road. Elias chose to walk away from the institution that tried to chain him, and Noah followed, not as a broken soldier, not as a lost pilot, but as a man ready to choose his own sky. Together, they left the base behind, a place that had been both prison and sanctuary, battlefield and home. The months that followed were quiet, achingly so. They rented a small house near the edge of a forgotten town in Colorado. Snow capped the mountains in the distance, and for the first time in years, Noah's lungs didn't ache with smoke or fear. He learned the rhythm of Elias's footsteps on wooden floors, the clink of coffee mugs in the morning, the way sunlight caught in his blonde hair when he wasn't trying to look untouchable. There were fights, of course. Elias's stubbornness didn't vanish with discharge, and Noah's reckless nature often clashed with it. But every slammed door was followed by a softer one opening. Every sharp word followed by the gentler truth neither of them had been brave enough to say aloud during the war. I can't lose you. Not now. Not ever. One night, the past came back to test them. Noah woke in a cold sweat, shaking, the sound of engines roaring in his ears. He stumbled out onto the porch, gasping for air, the mountains looming like silent witnesses. Elias found him there, barefoot in the snow, trembling. You're not there anymore? Elias whispered, draping his jacket around Noah's shoulders. You're here, with me. That's all that matters. Noah turned, tears glistening in his eyes. I don't know how to be anything but a soldier. I don't know who I am if I'm not flying. Elias cupped his face, thumbs brushing away the wetness on his cheeks. You're Noah, the man who laughs too loud, who cheats at chess, who burns the eggs every damn morning. You're mine. That's enough. And for the first time, Noah believed it. Spring came like a promise. The mountains thawed, wildflowers pushing through soil hardened by winter. Noah rebuilt a Planian old, battered civilian model he found rusting behind a farmer's barn. Piece by piece, he restored it, the smell of oil clinging to his hands, the hum of engines returning like a heartbeat. Elias watched from the porch, arms crossed, pretending to disapprove. But Noah caught the way his eyes softened every time he glanced up. The day the plane roared back to life, Noah held out his hand. Fly with me, he said simply. Elias hesitated. He had never trusted the sky, never trusted the emptiness that had taken so much from Noah. But when he looked into those dark, scarred eyes that no longer looked Los the nodded. The wind howled around them as the plane lifted, carrying them above mountains and rivers, above fear and memory. Noah's hand never left Elias's, even when turbulence rocked them. Scared, Noah teased, lips curving in that reckless grin Elias both hated and adored. Elias squeezed his hand tighter. Only of losing you. Noah's laughter echoed in the cockpit, freer than it had ever been. Then don't. They didn't need medals or ranks or the approval of the world. What they had was harder to win and infinitely more precious. Two men scarred by war, stitched back together not by time or orders, but by love. Two men who had learned that survival wasn't just about breathing, but about finding someone worth living for. The legendary pilot who once conquered the sky now found his home not in flight, but in the arms of the stubborn doctor who refused to let him crash again. And in that small town, beneath a sky vast and endless, they built a future. Not perfect, not without struggle, but theirs. On the porch of their house one summer night, with fireflies flickering in the dark and the mountains standing guard, Elias leaned against Noah, their fingers entwined. You ever miss it? Elias asked softly. The sky. Noah tilted his head back, eyes tracing the stars. Sometimes. But then I remember I've already got something better. Elias smirked. Better than flying? Noah turned, kissed him slow and sure, tasting of whiskey and summer air. Better than everything. And for the first time, Noah knew he had landed exactly where he was meant to be. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.